start the clock.
Good afternoon. At the tone, time will be
Real time.
We're on the after show. Van, how do you maintain friendships with ardent Trump supporters like Jeffrey Lord and Kayleigh McEnany?
Hard drugs. No,
Yeah,
I'm just
I was going to say.
I don't do drugs, so you guys had a long
Really?
I actually never.
Oh.
Why, you've never had a drink either?
I felt so bad.
You should feel bad.
Anyway, so
You don't know what you're missing. It's never too late.
I
I could get you fucked up.
frankly, hanging around Jeffrey Lord has got to be pretty fucked up. So
You'll think you're Van Johnson when you leave here.
Can I just vouch, though? I just see Van, we do CNN together occasionally. He's always just a nice guy to people, offset, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that, and I'll tell you why. Everybody's focused on... Listen, no, this is pure self-interest. Everybody's focused on Tuesday, the day of the election. I'm focused on Wednesday, the day after the election, when the Trump voters are not leaving America, the Clinton voters are not leaving America, Black Lives Matter is not leaving, and the cops aren't leaving. We're all going to be here together. We need to start working it out.
That's true.
Right,
Amen.
Chelsea, how would you compare sexism in Hollywood to sexism in politics?
I guess, sexism is pretty, rampant everywhere. I think watching Hillary and having her do this, like, to think about what somebody goes through for any campaign, and then to think that she's done this so many times, and the idea that that's labeled, like, to all the young girls that are growing up in this country, she's vilified so much because she's got ambition. Mm-hmm. Like, why are we saying that that's bad, that she has an agenda? Her agenda is public service. She's not evil. Yeah, she's not perfect. They do some, like, sketchy things. I'm okay with it. Like, I'm okay with a little bit of that. I don't think I think that the sexism plays such a major role in this election.
The weird thing to me is that you have the most qualified woman.
Person.
No. I want to keep it gendered. The most qualified woman in the history of the world versus the least qualified human being to do anything at all.
What he said earlier on your show, what he said earlier about if this were a black man, it's like if Hillary were, if Hillary had filed bankruptcy 4 times with 4 huge casinos, if she had been caught on tape saying these things, if she'd done half of this shit, she wouldn't be a nominee. He's a nominee.
The whole deal about, honestly, about Hillary being the most qualified person, I'm like, what has she done? Syria, there's 500,000 people that have been murdered in Syria. There's a war in Sudan. I'm saying the war is on fire. There's not been a single alliance built, the Secretary of State.
We're not on the network anymore. We're just on
she was a top foreign policy official.
But Secretary of State cannot control the world. You cannot really think.
Wait. She traveled to 100 countries in 4 years, working out, negotiating.
But how many alliances did she build?
Hold on a
Zero.
second.
Zero.
That's not true.
That's not true.
There's no single new alliance. Where's the new NATO? Where's the Asian alliance?
I'll give you NATO. We have NATO. It was built in 1949.
Exactly.
The other asshole wants to get rid of it.
Well, I'm just saying, I just call out the whole Hillary thing.
I think you're attracted to her. That's what I think.
Can I show you something? That's not the case.
You did.
Say whatever you want.
You did once walk toward her.
You did make a move on her. All right. You did make a move on her.
Can we just, honestly, I'll give you 2. One, Hamas, Israel. They could have been in a massive, you would have had dead children across the Middle East. She got in there and stopped it in 12 hours. That is very, very difficult
And by the way, also Libya was about stopping dead children.
And
that was we got in there for a humanitarian reason.
And the other
people
thing
forget that.
And the other thing is, let's not forget.
But she gets credit for that. She gets credit for that, but doesn't take any blame for Syria.
Reasons? Well, how can she take blame for Syria? Why is she blaming her?
What would a person do?
She's a top foreign policy official in the administration.
But you're saying she could get on the phone to the nefarious people we can't even identify who are fighting the government and tell these people who We don't even know who they are. Don't do it.
No, I'm saying that
It's just insane.
They could have had a safe passage for refugees. They could have grounded the Air Force.
To where?
First of all,
She was a fan of the Russian reset, don't forget.
Talk about first of all, your calendar is so screwed up. She wasn't even positioned by that point. But I'll give you one more.
Well, Trump always says that too. He says in the debates, he's like, she's been there for 30 years. Yes, as First Lady, she should have personally rewritten the tax code.
So,
right.
Listen, I'm not going to let you get away with this. I'm not going to let you listen, seriously.
Right.
Iran, she has no alliances. She went and got Russia. She went and got China and most of the world to squeeze Iran in a way that got us out of a fast track under George W. Bush for them to have nuclear weapons. That is very tough to do. What have you done, by the way, to come remotely close to anything like that?
Listen, first of all, I'll say, number one, I was the author of the public housing reform, the biggest housing reform in 60 years.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Number
That's
one.
true.
Number
That's
two,
true.
I was the author of a bill that allowed disabled people to go back to work and keep their health care
The ones
benefits,
Donald Trump's
and
making
got
fun
signed
of?
into law.
Yeah, but Rick,
So
but
I'm
Rick,
happy, but I'm just saying.
But what did you do about the cattle futures, Rick?
Okay.
What about the cattle futures?
I was asleep at the switch with that.
You fucked up on that one, man.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. You're a great crowd. We'll see you next week. President Obama. Real time. We'll be on. New rule: there is no such thing as too gay. Although you have to admit, this comes close. We're back on the. Oh, hey, Doc. You snuck up behind me there. Okay, Max, do you think there are similarities between America's treatment of Obama and its treatment of the Harlem Hellfighters after they returned home from fighting World War? Well, he says two, but one is the war.
Oh, no, of course. I mean, it's a tremendous backlash. Whenever we take 2 or 3 steps forward as a country, there's always going to be a step back. That's why we call them reactionaries, because they react. And, you know, because of political correctness, they're not allowed to speak their minds. Now they have to call him a Kenyan, or they have to use some other word. But when you see bumper stickers that say an African lion in the zoo and a lion African in the White House, it's pretty clear there's a backlash.
Oh, yeah. What did Ted Nugent call him? An inhuman mongrel?
An inhuman mongrel.
And then is offended when you think that when you call him a racist.
And even
where are you getting this
before
from?
they even started at the Sarah Palin rally, people were there with monkey dolls. I mean, people were pretty explicit.
And I think the worst word is mongrel that he used, not subhuman, because mongrel implies race mixing. Exactly. That's the real crime against the racists, is black man, white woman.
I mean, there is a word that sticks in their throat, and that's the N-word. They want to say it so bad. Do you remember in the 60s they used to say Nigra? That was a word they invented. They were so anxious and desperate, and they couldn't publicly, so they kind of just changed one, the Nigra.
And it would be in the context of, I think it was Eastland, the senator, who used exactly that language, saying, you know, the Negro wants to be on his own, that he likes segregation, it's what he prefers, he's happier that way. So it would all be mixed into sort of trying to say that they're sort of weird social constructs.
But you knew when you stood back then, like when George Wallace said, segregation now, segregation always, okay, we get it, here's who you are. It's when people who are clearly against Obama say, oh, no, it's not about race at all. No, he's just a socialist African Kenyan lion in the White House.
You're talking about the fringe of the 0.01%, and that's defending the indefensible. Nobody agrees with that.
Well, unfortunately, when Ted Nugent said what he said...
If only that were the case.
I always said, it's not Ted Nugent, it's the people that still rallied around him.
It's the same argument people make about Muslims. Why is the majority not speaking up against the minority that is doing these most extreme thing? When Ted Nugent says something like that, why isn't the Republican Party establishment?
I think you saw that when Cliven Bundy went racist. That's right. When Cliven Bundy went berserk and started going racist, I always thought the guy was a kook. Even before, you know, like Sean Hannity went down there and interviewed him. I thought the guy was a kook. And then he went berserk, and every conservative pretty much was like, this guy's nuts.
Well, what do you say about people who are not terrorists themselves, and I'm talking about Muslims or Cliven Bundy, but have the same agenda, or believe in the same things, or are very sympathetic to things that terrorists do? Because I think any time you use violence, especially to defend your religion, you are a terrorist. I mean, there were millions of Muslims who are willing to kill Salman Rushdie if they saw him on the street in a second, in a heartbeat. Doesn't that make you a terrorist in your heart? Isn't Cliven Bundy a terrorist, even though he didn't do the things that those two Vegas killers?
Crime. We're not going to go. First of all,
no, but there is connecting tissue between the two, is there not?
Yes, I'd give you that. Yes, there is connecting tissue.
Well, but
there are also plenty
support.
Yeah, but there are also plenty of people who do speak up against this kind of extremism, but don't get the attention they deserve. Don't get the kind of because they're saying things that make perfect sense and therefore don't make news.
Dr. Blazer, is there any link between the overuse? Oh, this is a great question. The overuse of antibiotics and the autism epidemic, because that's a hotly debated issue.
So we know that the bacteria in our body are helping program how the brain develops. And a third of the babies born in the United States today are born by C-section. They don't have the normal found one third, and in some countries it's
Why is
half.
that?
Many reasons, but it's like antibiotics. It's crept up and up and up. Something that's good is overused. In Scandinavia, it's only 12 or 15%. In Brazil and Ecuador, it's almost 50%. And here we've gone from 18% to 32%. So it's gone up. So the bacteria aren't normal. And now the average child in the United States, before they're 2, they've had 3 courses of antibiotics. And these have collateral effects. So I don't know whether autism is due to this, but it's plausible and needs to be tested.
Yeah, and I can tell you, just having kids, a trip to the pediatrician almost always ends with an antibiotic. Yeah. You know, and they're so overused that at a certain point they have to step up to the next one because the first course of antibiotic no longer works on a little kid whose immune systems are still developing. I think it is very much over.
And there's a lot of variation in how doctors use antibiotics. They're using antibiotics 50% more in the South than in the West.
Why?
Culture and practice.
What's the culture? What is it? Is it like fried?
Maybe it has to do with that.
Isn't it marketing too?
Antibiotics? That's ridiculous, doctor.
Chicken fry.
But the facts are correct.
Isn't it marketing too? Because I remember just even in the doctor's offices, the company that makes amoxicillin has a big placard. As soon as you walk in, they're supplying free samples. Yeah. I mean, it's very much pitched.
Like free lunches.
Yeah. It's okay. All right. Well, I hope we did some good tonight educating people, and I hope they won't take it as much. All right. Is Dick Cheney really, this is for you, Andy, your personal hero when it comes to Iraq?
I think Dick Cheney's a great man, and I think he's very, I think he's very misunderstood. I mean, okay, so
Andy, I fundamentally disagree.
This is a guy, though, he doesn't care what other people think, and after September 11th...
True.
Right.
I'll give him that.
Right. He has no pollsters. Right. And look, after September 11th, 2001, G.W. Bush and Dick Cheney had a very serious job, and that was to make sure the country did not get attacked again. And that was their
oath. Like it did under their watch.
Well, look, I mean...
Like when they were president.
Osama bin Laden festered. I'm not going to blame Bush for bin Laden. I'm not going to blame Clinton for bin Laden.
I will.
He was a terrorist that festered in Afghanistan.
Bush had a memo entitled "Osama bin Laden is standing right behind you."
Well, look, Clinton had a chance to take out Osama bin Laden in Jalalabad and didn't do it.
Right.
But can I just make one edit to what you said? After 9/11, George W. Bush had a constitutional responsibility to keep the country safe. The vice president has no constitutional authority.
Yeah, Cheney's brighter
should
than
not
Bush.
have been running, but he should not have been running that White House. He should not have had the power, the unelected, unconstitutional power he had over George W. Bush.
All right, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Max Brooks, will you please settle a bet? Are you named after Maxwell Smart? Well, I know why they're asking that, because your father wrote the great show Get Smart.
Yes, he wrote Get Smart. No, I'm named after Maximilian, subject of the Kaiser, and my grandfather.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Subject of the Kaiser.
Subject of the Kaiser, said it right there on his passport. German Jew, very proud. Yes, we're German, we're Jewish. What could possibly go wrong?
Okay. Bobby, are the ethics of journalism changing?
No, they're not. People who are practicing them sometimes don't apply them as much. The ethics are the same as they always were.
What are those ethics?
Report the truth, provide context when you can, and give all sides of a point of give all sides of a story that if you can possibly do it.
Of course, you know,
it's very simple.
The problem with a question like that is that people, you say journalism or media, and people think of different things. I mean, Entertainment Tonight is media,
right. Yep.
And Dexter Filkins is media, and you know, there's this big array in between.
Some guy blogging online is also claiming to be a journalist, and often is not, and their ethics, they don't necessarily follow all the ethics that we're required to.
We do here, though.
Absolutely.
Are back? Are the boycotts against Israel justified?
I dearly and painfully miss the time where Israel had moral authority. They used to have some moral authority.
They still do.
They squandered it dramatically in this period, and I think they're squandering it every day as we sit here. Moral authority is what changes the world, and they used to have it. And they have much less of it now, there's no doubt.
You can't have it both ways, Ron. You know, after the Second World War, everybody said, how could the Israelis just be marched into the gas chambers without fighting back? Well, they got tough, and they fight back, and they don't like it when people fire rockets into the terrorists.
No, that's not the issue. That's the tough Jews. We've met the tough Jews with Moshe Dayan. That was in 1968 and 73. What they've done in this period, though, goes against fundamental principles that, frankly, Jews have embraced for a long time, and that's not in the character of Israel as it was created. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I think we got to get out of this period here, and, you know, hopefully sometime very soon there's going to be a negotiated truce, and then get back to the bargaining table and settle this question of a Palestinian state. And the way that Israel has to do that is to recognize that it cannot continue settlement development in these areas. Otherwise, there can't be another state. We can't have
But let's have some empathy also for the Israeli public who are deeply skeptical about the character of a future Palestinian state because they live in a very dangerous neighborhood. I think it's easy for us who are very far away from there to, you know, kind of judge their behavior and how they responded.
Yeah. From people who have made it no secret that they would like this Israeli state to cease to exist.
Absolutely.
But we continue to protect the Israeli neighborhood. And I mean, I think, you know, this administration could not make clearer that the United States is a strong ally to Israel, but there has to be a negotiated agreement, and it's got to be with all Palestinians.
At the end of the day, it's their
community.
community.
And if that doesn't happen, it doesn't make the neighborhood any safer.
Right. And we were talking about refugees before. I mean, you know, the Palestinians could have had a deal on the table a long time ago, but they would not. All those Arab countries with all that empty land never wanted those Palestinians, those refugees. They had plenty of room for a lot of people, but no, they wanted this problem.
And the Palestinian leaders who want to make a deal are incredibly vulnerable. Their lives are in danger. And that's the fundamental problem. They're the ones who are at risk.
The fundamental problem is that people, no matter what religion, who think that the real party is in the next world, just don't have as much motivation to fix things in this one. Jason, what is your opinion of nuclear power and those who say it is better for the environment?
You know, Fukushima taught us a lot about the risks of nuclear, and it happened about a generation after people started to forget about Chernobyl. And that's the small value of that horrible incident. But I say that nuclear isn't safe. Some argue it should be used as a transition energy source because it's low carbon. I think that we can get there by a bigger investment in solar and wind. We don't need nuclear.
And, you know, when you think about, there's three words that everybody knows: 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. And each one got worse.
Virtually all of France's nuclear power is virtually all of their electricity is generated by nuclear power. There are many countries where it's been tremendously safe. There are new modular designs. There's pebble bed reactors. There are new technologies that we've stymied. We've prevented them from emerging.
That is true, too.
This makes a huge, huge difference. And fundamentally, it's base load power. Wind and solar, these are intermittent power sources. You need base load.
We have new storage energy coming on, and so
we're nowhere near the place where solar and wind are going to make a difference. And
what do you think of the guy we were talking about before from Kentucky who says that the temperature on Mars is the same as Earth?
I think it's very foolish. And I think that fundamentally, when you actually talk about what's actually going on, you see that some ideas, and you know, I have enormous respect for the work that you do, and I value it tremendously, but I think that the idea that wind and solar is going to be a solution, the United States economy is decarbonized faster than the EU. The EU had the emissions trading scheme. We had fracking. I know you're not a big fan, but actually natural gas and nuclear are the bridge to a cleaner energy system, and we need them. And they've made an enormous contribution.
Unfortunately, fracking is releasing a lot more methane than was thought. So it's no panacea.
And Germany is burning more lignite. They're burning more of the worst kind of coal because they're actually shutting down nuclear power plants. That's what's going to happen if you don't allow for a kind of good low carbon.
You know a lot about this. I mean, you're throwing around terms I don't even know.
I care about it.
Yeah, I know you do. So what do you say to people on the Republican side, like this guy in Kentucky, the people who just seem to refuse to want to live in the world of facts? You know, I mean, Bobby Jindal said we have to stop being the party of stupid after the last election, and of course then he got scared and ran right back to stupid. But how do you get the Republican Party to not be stupid, to just at least be on the page of reality?
Well, I disagree with a lot of the folks on the panel about this. What I believe is that the things that are going to lead to cheaper, safer, reliable energy in the United States are also the things that are going to help the environment. And I think that when you're trying to build a coalition, because ultimately we've got to build a larger group of people who are going to disagree on many things, but you've got to get a lot of people on the same page. And the way to do that is to emphasize what are things that we all want. And so, you know, if you're looking at the price of electricity, it costs twice as much in Germany as it does here. And that makes a big difference. You were talking about the $130,000 before. That makes a big difference to people. So if you're able to tell people, we're going to deliver you cheaper and cleaner energy, that's something where you can build a real coalition. And that's what you've got to talk about.
Well, you have to be willing to invest in those technologies, and the fact is I just happen to go to work every day with a whole bunch of people who don't believe in making those investments, who don't believe in the science of climate change, who don't believe that it's important for the United States to invest in the new technologies that are going to change that
populace
future.
Actually does believe in climate change at this point,
I know,
regardless
but,
of party.
But you know, when you have a Congress,
yeah.
that doesn't, and that every single day, even just this week, I mean, we took votes saying we don't want the Department of Defense doing things that are going to respond to its own climate assessment.
I saw Cory Booker and Rand Paul making so nice together this week.
Criminal justice?
What?
About criminal justice reform?
Well, they did some sort of forum together, and they were like, you know, we can work together. Is that the beginning of something?
Something like what?
I mean, like a Republican and a Democrat actually not looking at each other like they have horns growing out of their head.
That is an interesting concept.
Well,
I think it has to begin though with people, with all of us on the same page, agreeing to the same basic facts. I mean, if you can't agree to the same facts, it makes it really hard.
Is there a congressperson on the Republican side you could buddy up with like that?
I could name a couple.
Who could you be friends with and work together?
Richard Hanna from New York.
Oh, he's great. No, I never heard of him.
Republicans have been for energy investment. I mean, ARPA-E started under the Bush administration. Mitt Romney ran on more investment in energy. I think that there are plenty of conservatives who support it.
He's probably going to be in trouble now that I've said that.
No, he shouldn't be. I mean, that used to be a good thing. That used to be something people
No, I think there are areas
Kennedy,
around.
Remember, McCain and Hillary Clinton were like buddies in the Senate for a while.
Yeah, like I think the hard Republican right is not having a good year. I mean, the bottom line, there's a lot of Republicans that I talk to say we've got to take them on because we can't win a national election with the situation as it now stands. And I think that ambition, well, that's...
We're living on different planets.
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, the fact is ambition is a good motivator, and they cannot win a national election with the divisions they have now.
Well, the real motivator has to be what's going to make a difference in the lives of the American people.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And if folks start focusing on that, then I think you could...
Well, we have a place to begin. We want things to get better. Thank you very much. Sanctions against Russia will have a positive effect, Jim S. asks. Well, I think they could. I mean, I think he, you know, we've seen a lot of kleptocracies before. You know, I mean, there's a lot of tyrants in the world who have made no distinction between their own personal bank account and the country's treasury. Mobutu, remember him in Zaire, and Marcos in the Philippines, and Papa Doc in Haiti. I mean, this is common practice. But Putin could actually be the worst.
I think we got to remember that Russia is a dying and decaying power. You know, they're kind of sustained because energy prices are high. They have no serious economy. Their population is shrinking. This is not an ascendant power. This is a power that is collapsing, and they're trying, Putin, and the person of Putin, trying to, you know, relive the days of Russian empire. We should try to expedite that as fast as possible, and sanctions might be the key to that.
And Obama deserves credit for the tough sanctions he imposed 2 days ago.
Jane, Obama never deserves credit. Get that through your head. He's always weak and emboldening people.
There are those zombie lies.
I thought that only worked when I did it. Okay.
Losing your power.
No, I guess I am. Does the Reverend Barber, does the news media's constant reference to the N-word instead of using the actual word in context help or hinder national discussion on race and racism?
That's an interesting question. Well, you know, I don't know if the constant referral to the N-word is in. The problem with the race discussion is we don't really want to have a race discussion.
Right.
And we don't want to unpack how race is behind the denial of Medicaid, how race is behind these voter suppression laws. You know, in our state, for instance, the Speaker of the House, Tillis, said he was passing a voter integrity law. But you wait until after Shelby. After Shelby, someone says, now that the headache has been removed, that's a code word, and then you change 40 different laws of our state laws, and every law that you change, from same-day registration, early voting, to straight ticket, all are laws that will impact African Americans and other minorities and women. We don't want to talk about how ever since that Kevin Phillips came up with that so-called white Southern strategy, people have used these code words. So I'm not so much worried sometimes about folk who use N or the actual word. What I'm worried about are people who engage in policies that have a systemic discriminatory impact on minorities and African Americans.
Well said, sir. Nate, what must happen for the public to consider Obamacare a success or at least a wise idea? Yeah, that's a great question for someone who crunches the numbers.
Well, it's a hard question to answer because these are policies that are going to take years to go into effect. You know, Obamacare was trying to solve a problem where you have however many Americans who are uninsured. Still, most people were happy with their insurance. That means the range of people it's affecting is a modestly sized, in fact, a significant sized minority of the population. But, you know, will they have health care that they like? Will they see that it's cheaper or not? Or will their premiums have gone up? You know, I don't think all the rhetoric you hear right now from Republicans and Democrats is going to really matter very much in 5 years when people have experience where they lose a job and they get this care, or they find that they can't get the coverage they want.
We talked about a poll that said something like 3/4 of Republicans who got Obamacare were happy with it.
Right.
Even ones where their policy.
Well, that's what I was saying before, is that the number of people who have been in this group of uninsured people, it's a big problem in my view, but it's still a minority of the population. So in theory, you can make some people very pleased because now they can get care when they didn't have it before, and everyone else a little angry because their taxes might be higher.
I voted for it, folks, and the law was not perfect to get
Only
it
the
passed.
Democrats know how to brag about themselves like you do.
That's
what they need to learn how to do.
Unfortunate that it was a partisan vote. And should the law perhaps be amended? Yes, it should. There are things that don't work well, but a lot of the provisions are hugely popular, and the number of uninsured is going down. So in the net, it is a positive. And unfortunately, Obama is not telling the story very well, because I do think in the country, when more people understand what the law actually does, it will become more popular.
Yeah, you know,
it should.
One of the things that I struggle with was my Republicans, and I call them extremists because we have some good Republicans. My granddaddy was one. They claim to love Jesus so much, and Jesus, if he didn't do anything, he went around setting up free health clinics. And so why in the world are they so against health care? Secondly, in our state, with all of the attempts to stop it, we were the 5th highest state to receive impact from Obamacare, people signing up. You want to know the success? I prayed to live long enough that my daughter, who has hydrocephalus, would not be able to be denied health care. That was one of my prayers, and there are millions of other parents in this country that are glad now that their children will be able to have health care.
Yeah, it does seem a little strange to me that the party that always claims the mantle of being the Jesus lovers do things that I can't imagine Jesus approving of, like stopping a bus full of children from coming into the country. I mean, that just doesn't seem like, or gay. It doesn't seem like Jesus who catered to the sick and the lepers and the hookers would then come across the gay people and go, oh, you make me sick, fag. That just doesn't seem Jesus-like to me.
On the other hand, I agree with you to a certain extent that some treat the border issue not realizing that there are children down there. But just this week, Glenn Beck has sent caravans full of supplies and soccer balls and things to help the children. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Right. And he also said it probably is the greatest threat to my career. So I would say to Glenn Beck, hang out with different people. If this is a great threat to you because your fans will hate you for it, maybe your fans aren't good people.
And if you want to send something, don't send balls, send a change in immigration policy, and let's welcome these children. That's in fact, and by the way, Bill, I want to tell you something. When it comes to atheism, I'm an atheist too when it comes to those folk that say that Jesus is on the side of bigots and on the side of those that hurt people. That kind of God, I don't know him either. I believe in a God of justice, a God of love, and a God that cares for the stranger and welcomes people regardless of who they are.
Well, it's good to know you're a fellow atheist, Reverend. You are... You are nothing if not a convener. I've always said that about you. What a convener this guy is. A word
Send him to Congress.
George, in the world of 60s television, was there a sort of gay underground from which you could draw some support, or did you just have to go it alone? Oh, yeah. Who were the other gay people then? There must have been.
That was the period of the AIDS epidemic.
No, this is the 60s.
Oh, I thought you said 80s.
The 60s. When you were on Star Trek, you're saying, was there a gay underground that you could get, other people, I'm guessing, on Gilligan, perhaps? Or...
There were what's called gay bars. And there was an organization called the Mattachine Society, which was organized and actually articulating for equality for LGBT people. So there was that. But I had a career that I wanted passionately. I love acting.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I were out and advocating...
But and then he's asking about support from other people who were in your same shoes when they were in the 60s, television, you couldn't come out. I'm just asking, like, Mr. Drucker, perhaps, on... Petticoat Junction. I always thought he was a little light in the loafers. I'm just saying,
Well, there were gay people.
Colonel Bellows on I Dream of Jeannie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so there were all these support people. There were
Carpenter on McHale's Navy. Give me a break. I mean, these people were playing.
Yes. But I didn't want that kind of career.
Right.
I wanted, a career where I could grow and maybe do some, substantial roles.
All right.
And if I were asking for support as a gay man, forget it.
Right.
I couldn't be an actor.
Next week, I'll tell you who was gay on Hee Haw. Thank you, Barnett. Richard Wolff, how do you see the future of the American economy? Wow, that's pretty broad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in 30 seconds
in
or
25 words or less, yeah, perfect.
140 characters or less, yeah.
I think what's happening is that we're coming to a kind of crossroads, and I think Americans are more and more willing and interested in looking at alternatives to the way the economy has worked. That's my hope. I think they're asking questions about whether we might not have a democratic way of organizing our enterprises. Instead of having a tiny group of people at the top making all the decisions for everybody, everybody gets to be participants.
What would you say to, now, Matt's part of the Tea Party, right?
Yes.
The Tea Party, I notice, almost always has the same agenda as billionaires. I mean, they're on the same page as the Koch brothers. It seems like a grassroots organization like that would be at odds with the agenda of the Steve Forbes and the Koch brothers. What would you say?
I'm always amazed that people don't see through this. For the Koch brothers, as part of the top 1%, if they were as isolated politically as they are economically, being so the tip of the iceberg and everybody else is in trouble by comparison, they'd be in deep difficulty. What they need is a mass base. They need some way to get large numbers of people to allow them to continue to be a rich minority. And they don't hesitate to fund and to find people and to find some issue where they can bring in some support so that they wouldn't be as isolated as economically they want to continue to be.
I think it's interesting you use the term iceberg when you talk about the Koch brothers, because icebergs relate to climate change, and it's exactly what they and others have been setting up. Well, people talk about think tanks, stink tanks, to obscure the fact that climate change is challenging the fate of the planet.
I noticed.
Well, just wait, but icebergs only have like a full 10% of themselves out of the water, and the Koch brothers are way less than that.
Tenth of a 1%.
I hate to break the top molecule. Like this
I hate to break it to you guys, but we're not actually funded by the Koch brothers, so that might spoil the narrative.
I didn't say you were funded.
I understand. I understand. But, you know, I think that the real debate we're having in this country is not about whether or not we tolerate people that are rich, but whether or not we're still a country where anybody can get rich. And when I travel across the world, I notice that...
Is that our problem? That people can't get rich?
Well, it is. Well, don't we all agree that people should have more opportunities on the lower rungs of the economic ladder?
I think most people are never going to get rich. I think what we need is opportunities for people to get into the middle class. Not every. I mean, I remember Mitt Romney had a fundraiser at I think it was the Papa John guy's house, and he's a rich guy. He made money in the way most Republicans make money, pizza. I don't know why that is. But the guy had a private golf course in his own lake, and Mitt Romney said, you know, Democrats look at this and say nobody should live like this. Republicans look at this and say everybody should live like this. I'm like, everybody can't live like this. Who's going to take care of the golf course and the lake if everybody lived like this?
But this is important. This goes back to what you were talking about earlier.
A robot can do that.
A robot, yes.
The definition of rich, the definition of wealthy, the definition of what a good life is, has grown over time so that more and more people live longer, live better lives, have more opportunities. And I disagree with this idea that people are losing those opportunities because it's all relative. I do agree with you that there's this problem with crony capitalism, and there is this collusion between big businesses and big government, and that keeps people from getting in. But what we go after that collusion, we don't go after the enterprise system that creates the opportunities.
Right. And the disparity, look, the disparity between the haves and have-nots has only grown under this president. It wasn't good under Bush. It's not. I'm sorry, that's actually a fact. And the people who actually put the president, the people who actually put the president on.
Is that a fact?
No, it isn't.
It is.
No, it isn't.
It is.
No, the widening gap between rich and poor is 35 years old in this country. Uninterrupted
and
for 35 years.
It's grown under this president. Much like the same people who put this president in office. Demographics like African Americans.
Well, what he's saying is
like
it's grown under Bush as well.
I did. Yes.
But they're not being honest about the reality of that fact. That's all he's saying.
Okay. It continues to grow is my point. Look,
that's not
we get, look, no, I even said I said it started under Bush. Look, I got no problem slapping around Bush, okay? That's not the problem here. What I have the problem with is when I can absolutely say without a doubt.
I don't either have problems.
We as a party have a problem. We as a party have a problem. Or when I come on these shows, I try to explain to people we have a problem. I have no issue with saying we miss it because we miss it in a lot of ways. But don't sit there on a high moral ground and tell me that it doesn't get worse under this guy. It's been getting bad for a long time. So, under Bush and now more so under Obama. And the people.
But that would argue that he could not possibly be a socialist.
How so?
Well, if income inequality is getting worse under Obama, how could he possibly be the socialist that they're always saying he is? Wouldn't income equality...
And that's the thing. I'm not saying he's a socialist. That's not the point.
Okay,
I'm not saying
many do on the right.
Many do. I'm not saying he's a socialist. But the people who put him in office, women, African Americans, Hispanics, their incomes have all gone down. Their jobless numbers have all gone up.
Really?
That's a fact. I don't know what to tell you.
But unemployment is down to 6.1% when he took office.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. That's fine.
I think what's particularly sad in this country is the continuum, is the trend, whether it's the Democrat Clinton or the Republican Bush or whether it's the Democrat Obama. We are talking about this continuum, which is uninterrupted, that goes to the two-party system in this country. That really, in the end, doesn't present a serious choice that would challenge the income disparity in this country.
Right. Okay. Neil deGrasse Tyson, what sort of event would it take to energize American STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, right? Those are the degrees that we call STEM degrees.
And occasionally people put an A in there for art and say STEAM, just so you know.
But
it's on the horizon.
But that doesn't fit in there.
It spells STEAM.
Yeah, but that's...
Of course it fits. It's a vowel.
It fits in the word. It doesn't fit in the concept.
Well, they try to make it...
Well, that's stupid. Because the point of this is...
You just called him stupid.
No, I didn't call him stupid. I called...
You called my idea stupid.
I'm putting it... I don't think it's your idea.
No,
you just said they did it. But you should... which one doesn't fit? Science, technology, engineering, math. These are the things that kids...
is not like the other.
That's right. There, you... Let me read from... Yes. We have no problem getting kids to take art classes or drama classes. They take twice as many, graduate twice as many people with drama degrees, okay? That's not what we need. We need science, technology, engineering, math. It says, how do we energize American students to take these the way Sputnik did?
Okay, so a couple of things. The reason why people want to put the A in there is they recognize that art is a fundamental expression of human creativity, and innovation in STEM fields comes about when you're creative. That's the motivation for that. But I largely agree with you that it doesn't fit, but it's a little bit of mission creep.
Stretch.
Fine. So
That's messed up.
I'm stealing your catchphrase.
So I worry that we just have to keep sinking more deeply until we all recognize that Republicans, Democrats, and all other factions in our nation have to align our pistons, because we're all sinking on the ship and we're all on the same ship.
Yeah. Right.
And we've aligned our pistons before. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, all the dissenting views at the time came into straight alignment.
9/11.
9/11, we came into alignment. Sputnik, we came into alignment. These are profound moments that affect us.
Seems like the common thread.
Unfortunately,
threats.
They appear to be threats. We resort to our basal needs to survive, and then we agree with one another with our paths and ideas at the time. I worry we have to sink
to threats, to future threats. All right, thank you.
That's why. It's not the best kind of answer that should drive it, but
there
it is.
There it is. Ralph, first one's to you. Do you support liberals rallying around a libertarian like Rand Paul, or more of a centrist like Hillary Clinton?
You mean Generalissima Hillary Clinton? No, I support Rand Paul on foreign military policy and the Federal Reserve and the bloated military budget.
Right.
All of which she's on the other side. Who's liberal and who's conservative anymore?
If only we could combine, like, the half of Rand Paul we like with, like, Elizabeth Warren. Wouldn't that be an awesome candidate?
Like a centaur.
Like a centaur. What platforms do Democrats need to run on to have any degree of success in the 2014 midterms? Let's ask the opposition. What do you think?
Well, I think right now they're running on impeachment, and I think it's cynical but very smart of them to do. The White House has been talking about impeachment nonstop. The Democratic campaign committee's raised $2 million.
They didn't exactly make it up out of thin air. There are many Republicans who have brought up that word and that concept.
But the Speaker Boehner, has been very clear, privately and publicly, that this is not happening, and he's really the only one that matters on this.
Okay. And I agree. It is a political move for them to. In fact,
it would be very stupid of us to do it, and we're not going to.
We did a rant at the end of the show in May, saying, "Please do it," because it's the one thing that could save the Democrats.
You know, we tried that with Bill Clinton. It didn't work very well.
No, it did. Right. Yeah. How do you think a hypothetical president's atheism would affect foreign policy in the U.S.?
President Maher?
Yeah, like that'll ever happen. Well, I mean, atheists tend to be ethicists. We don't believe that goodness is going, should be anything but for the sake of itself. We don't think that our ass is going to get saved because we have faith. We have to actually make our ethics in this world. So I would think it would be, good. How worried should we be about Americans going abroad and returning as suicide bombers? Well, we've seen there was a guy who blew himself up in Syria this week, an American. And he, by the way, he was railing against Americans working too hard. He said Americans work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I'm like, hey, dude, that's my bit at the end of the show. Don't. Yeah.
He also said he didn't have any friends. Oh. Poor guy.
That is the root of a lot of problems. Remember the guy in Santa Barbara who killed all those people? He
needs some friends, some girlfriends.
It's that age. That is such a dangerous age, like 18 to 22. You know, you're not a kid anymore. You're finding your way in the world. It's like the beginning of your second life. You have nothing going for you. I'm going for my own life, you know. And you're just very vulnerable to anything. I think that's why they join these groups.
We need like an AmeriCorps of girlfriends. You know what I mean? People, like, you volunteer for 2 years to just be girlfriends to losers.
I'll give some bipartisan support for that. I could use that, actually.
No, but it really is true. We need, it gets better, not just for homosexuals.
Right. I like the AmeriCorps.
Isn't that right, Chris?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Isn't that right?
What, the AmeriCorps of girlfriends?
No, that it gets better.
Oh, it does. Well, it's better. But that's why the AmeriCorps of girlfriends is like freshman and sophomore year for the girls and the junior and senior year for the guys. Listen, this is why we have masturbation, right, Ralph Nader? I feel weird saying that next to you. I don't feel comfortable that I just said that out loud. I just made a jerk-off joke next to Ralph Nader. I'm going to sit quietly. I'm not going to make eye contact. I'm going to stare at my
Ralph has seen it all. Are you kidding? In fact, I was reading that when you were investigating Corvair, they tapped your phones and tried to trap you with prostitutes.
Yeah.
Wow. How far did the prostitutes get?
Not as far as they would have gotten with you.
Damn! Whoa! Yeah, very nice.
He volleyed that one back.
How did they do that? Did they like dig a hole and put a carpet in front of your door and then you fall in and like prostitutes, mad rabid prostitutes, clawing and attacking?
No, they actually sent me to cookie counter in a store.
Oh wow!
So
really?
We're having a discussion. You want to come? It's going to be on foreign affairs. I think they were talking about domestic affairs.
And you knew that they were prostitutes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at that time, we knew, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so but it helped pass the Auto and Highway Safety Bill.
But what did you do with it?
The prostitutes did?
A minor concession.
I also feel a little uncomfortable with like 6 guys talking about what girls should do. We're like Congress.
You know what I mean? All right.
So true.
I was just listening.
Right. Okay.
Talking about masturbation.
Ralph, this one says, will you run in 2016?
No. Jerry Brown is going to look for it. If Hillary falters, watch for Jerry Brown.
Oh, so
it'll be his 4th try. He's very popular in California.
You're leaving it to a younger man.
Yeah, of course.
Chris, what members of Congress would you want on at midnight? Oh, please. Right?
None of them? I don't know.
We have comedians.
Yeah, we have comedians on. Yeah. We have comedians on.
Yeah.
That would be a really boring. Like, first of all, they would all have to get together for about 4 weeks to decide on how to answer each question.
Yeah, it would just be wrong.
Yeah.
So, Ralph, these prostitutes, when they... Tell me about the whores, Lenny. Is this do-nothing Congress representative of what's in store for the future every time a Democrat wins the presidency? Or maybe just anybody wins the presidency. I mean...
Look, I think certainly Obama's first 2 years, he was very productive. I didn't like what he was producing, but they were very productive. Nancy Pelosi got a lot of bills into law. Sure. Obviously, that's not happening as much now. But I'll tell you, for the past 2 years, I spent every day trying to pass legislation. A lot of it was bipartisan. We have about 45 Democrat bills that passed the House, one of which was actually just passed last week, was a Barbara Lee bill that the Senate won't consider. And that's a real problem. If the House can pass bills that are bipartisan bills, some of them ought to be good ideas. Maybe not all of them are, but some of them are. And we just can't get things through. And the Senate has become a legislative graveyard, unfortunately.
So this is...
They don't even consider Democrat amendments in the Senate.
And this is like the first day of the rest of your life today, right? Because
apparently so, yes. So there'll be a collection plate, I believe. I hope.
Who, if you had your druthers, who would you work for next?
I don't know. I was so fortunate to work with Eric Cantor. I think was such a good guy who I think a lot of people wouldn't realize the amount of time he spent in inner cities visiting schools, a lot of time at medical research facilities and hospitals, and things like that are really important.
Do you think it
Watch it.
No, I believe that.
But I'm a big fan of Marco Rubio. I'm a big fan of Bobby Jindal, and I also like that having worked for the highest-ranking Jewish Republican and the only African-American Republican National Committee chair, I like the fact that we have a lot more diverse voices than we did, say, 10 years ago.
Yeah, you have one of each.
Right. And everywhere. And everywhere.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you in September. Okay, we're on overtime. Here are some of your questions. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, predicts that Ebola will affect 550,000 people by the end of the year. Shouldn't we be more concerned? Well, we just sent how many troops to
3,000?
Yeah,
3,000. I mean, that's a pretty big.
And $30 million to the CDC and $58 million for BARDA to come up with a vaccine. So, I mean, we've done everything that we're supposed to be doing, but I've never heard that number.
But Fox News doesn't think we're doing enough. So
because it's Obama.
Because it's Obama. Ebola has replaced ISIS at the border for Fox News, at least temporarily.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because here's a question. It says, does the Mexican border pose a real threat to national security to justify its increased militarization by Rick Perry? I don't know if are they talking about ISIS at the border, like Trent Franks, or are they talking about the Guatemalan kids who are looking for a peanut butter sandwich at the border?
And who no one's talking about anymure.
No, they seem to have disappeared, those kids.
And that was just a loophole because they wanted to make sure Mexican kids didn't come. So in the original bill that said, we're going to expedite sort of any sort of consideration of people coming here for asylum. We want to do it, but just make sure no Mexican kids. And so all of the coyotes then went south and said, we'll do it for Central American, Guatemalan kids, and that's when the influx started.
Not the coyotes in my backyard. They are, man, those...
Actually, I just went down to Honduras and met with a lot of these kids and the families. The crazy thing about it is that,
you went down to Honduras?
Yeah, El Salvador and Guatemala.
You go anywhere.
I know, and I want you to go with me.
Yes, I know you do, and it's never going to happen, Jackie. I so admire
You won't hang out. You won't travel with me.
I'll totally hang out. I'll hang out at the Beverly Hills Hotel anytime you want. But I mean, I admire that. You go to Rwanda to help the gorillas?
And the children. Don't forget, there is a little humanity.
And the children of the gorillas. I think helping the gorillas is humanity.
Well, it is. But these kids, what's interesting, Wendell, is that the coyotes will say to them, we'll give you 3 attempts. Give me $4,000, $5,000, and they sometimes they make it, and sometimes they don't. They keep doing it, but they're making millions upon millions of dollars, more money than that than smuggling drugs at the moment.
What's not being talked about, though, is that all these people are a profit center. Talk about for-profit colleges, for-profit prisons. The for-profit prison system in Arizona is one of the most pernicious things in the entire world. Yet again, shareholders enrich by filling prison beds, and the immigration laws in Arizona are their key money-making provision.
Far be it from me to pile on the Republicans, but I must say, one of the worst ideas in the whole Republican category is the idea that everything should be for profit, that the free market always knows best. Certainly, prisons. We could... Healthcare in prisons. Sick and dying people and prisoners. Shouldn't those two things that shouldn't just be for the profit motive? Is that so much to ask?
Yeah. But the profit motive...
I know my place. I will defend profit. Profit is a good thing.
It is.
Always, in every instance.
Let me say, in this case,
then you're incentivized to pass tough on crime laws.
A private prison is controlled by the government. It is a bid situation. And the health care is still provided by the government. And
health care is not provided by the government?
Yes, it is.
You have to buy insurance.
Health care is
in prison.
No, in a private
prison.
prison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of privatization that the GOP is working on is what, General Powell was talking about as majority becomes minority.
Right.
They're trying to coalesce all of the power, money, influence as we become minorities in privatization of all of our government treasury in every field. So when we put our people in office, we control this privatization, although in 20 years we're a minority, we are still in control of power.
America is the greatest country in the world, the most exceptional, the most fantastic people, and yet we have more of our own people in prison than any other country.
We've built.
How do we square that
We've built
circle?
28 prisons in California the last 30 years, and only one new public university. That just goes to show you. By the way, prison spending is crowding out education.
Yeah, now, and I'm a son of a college professor. I'm from a college town. I think absolutely we've got to invest in education. There's no debate at all. One thing I want to point out.
Does that mean you're for the Pell Grant?
Let me say this about the student loan program.
Yeah.
As you know, that was done in 2007 under Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat leadership. The program that you're criticizing John Klein for was a Democrat package passed by the Democrat House, Democrat Senate, signed by President Obama.
It was a bill to cap interest rates and make them fixed, not variable.
But it's still in effect today. Because when you
change.
No,
it variable rate.
It hasn't. And if it was changed today, it would have been signed by President Obama and passed by Harry Reid.
And it was a bad bill that we opposed anyway.
Right.
So
I'm telling you, though, I mean, you have to admit that it was a Democrat bill.
No.
Why do you always say Democrat when you know the word is democratic?
Somebody.
It's kind of a.
My job.
It's a subtle.
My job is equal time with you people, and I'm going to.
I know that's a subtle dig, the Democrat, and I don't even get it. I don't even know why. Instead of saying Democratic, Democrat, like.
Trust me, Bill. It's Democrat.
But seriously, why are we arguing? Why is the big political debate about how high student interest loan rates, interest rates should be? Why are we not debating building more universities?
Or doing what Oregon does, or Australia does.
You brought up 1980 before. In 1980, I paid $350 a semester at the University of Wisconsin. The school, the UC system here was free until Ronald Reagan decided those uppity kids shouldn't get to go to college for free because they were misusing their education.
Reagan said that the federal government should not be in the business of making young people rich and subsidizing their profits. So
completely turning on its head
the
entire.
And that's why the GOP is very good at rhetoric, because they loved Ronald Reagan for all of his rhetoric. And he spoke to poor white folk. That's who the GOP folks are, poor white folk, because you might become a member of the rich white guy club.
Are you saying, I want to make sure I understand, you're saying...
So that's the largest portion of
my
poor people
learned,
here.
college-educated panelists here. Are you saying a truck driver who makes $30,000 a year who did not go to college should subsidize some future doctor and lawyer who did?
Yes.
With a low,
because we have actually,
on this.
And you know
what? They're subsidizing their own children.
Because we actually decide that the values in our country believe that.
Because it pays itself back many times over.
The blue collar should subsidize the white collar.
We
should
no.
The white collar should subsidize the blue collar, and vice versa. Everyone should.
The rich should pay much higher.
Truck driver who makes $30,000 a year, should he subsidize the future doctor and lawyer?
Why are you condescending to the non-college truck driver?
I'm asking you that question.
He or she might want his or her
We've
kids
decided we're not going to parse what type of education you're going to get. We're not parsing that.
You know, in some countries, college is free.
Hey,
I just want to point out, in some countries,
Australia,
and you know, we have 11 aircraft carriers. Nobody else has any. Like, if we only had 8, we probably could send everybody to college. And I don't think Finland would invade. And by the way, speaking of Ronald Reagan, and we were talking about the Middle East before, you know, in 1983, when the barracks was bombed in Beirut, George Bush, the first, went over there. He was the vice president at the time. He stood in the rubble and he said, "We will not be cowed by terrorists." And then we cut and ran. What do you think about that?
Well, I tend to agree with you because, listen, USS Cole, 17 Americans killed under Clinton as president. It was called a criminal act. The bombing of the embassy in Nairobi, criminal act. The 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, a criminal act.